Is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are live at a couple places on the internet. We're live on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, not Facebook again. I don't know what's going on with that. Got to look into that, I guess. But maybe listen later wherever you are getting your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, other places, I guess. It's all good. And I do want to mention something up top. I don't know if I told you guys. I think Justin knows about this. Pete, I don't know if you know about this.
Oh, boy.
But we are streaming a 24/7 live channel on YouTube now with some best of Comic Book Club. So you can check that out. That's always up on the YouTube channel.
Who decides it's the best of Comic Book Club?
This guy.
Oh,
it's weird. It's mostly clips of me.
It's all you the whole time?
Yeah.
Just edited out stuff that me and Justin say, and it's just all you?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, but it looks amazing.
Oh, great. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Soft transitions from Alex's to Alex's all day long. I mean, it's great. We can just we're always on. We're always talking.
Well, I will say, not to go into a morose note or anything like that here, because we had this running starting on Saturday, and really sadly, Peter David, comic book legend, passed away Saturday night. Tom Urdar, great journalist for The Beat.
Spidey 616.
Spidey 616, huge supporter of the show throughout the years. Back in the day when we were live in theaters, he would occasionally come by and just like videotape it and throw it up on YouTube. And he had two of our shows that we had done with Peter David, one from 2008, one from 2009. So working with him, I was able to rip those shows and put them up, and I ran them on a loop in the live stream for like 12 hours back to back. Which I don't know. I mean, as a tribute, it was nice to see.
It's really cool. Well, and let me also say that show is wild because isn't one of them when Chris Gethard was on, and he had sent a letter to the back of a comic that Peter David had written, and he read it aloud to him like 15 years later.
Yeah,
or something crazy.
Yeah, it was a in memoriam for Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was great. And then the other one, Peter David did like entering on a table, and he was in shadow and everything. Great memories.
Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Let's drop the link in the chat.
Yes, I will do that in a moment after we introduce our first set of guests. They are the folks behind the new upcoming comic, Time Sensitive.
Cool.
Very time sensitive to bring them into the stream. Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua Rubin and George Coelho.
Hey, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, guys.
How badly did I mangle your name?
You did great.
It is great.
Really great.
Excellent. Well, guys, very, very excited to have you here. Very excited to talk about this. We are in multiple countries talking right now. And George, it's very late for you, so thank you for staying up for this.
Thanks.
But time sensitive, Joshua, I do want to start with you because you have a heavy background as a game writer. You wrote Assassin's Creed 2, Destiny, one of my absolute favorites of all time, the Telltale Walking Dead games as well, which are amazing.
Yes, of course.
But this comic book is something that you've been sitting on and wanting to do for, 15 years at this point? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been writing comics in my head for a very, very long time. Video games is what I've actually gotten produced, and I've been very, very lucky. I mean, I've gotten to work on amazing games. I mean, the fact that Assassin's Creed 2 was my very first video game I ever wrote is just like a crazy way to break into the system. For years before that, I was trying to be a movie writer and TV writer, and I had really early success because I won something called the Nickel Fellowship, which is this contest that the Academy Awards puts on every year for unproduced screenplays. So I got into the top 5 for that and was able to come out to Hollywood and have my pick of agents and producers ask me, what do you want to do next? And I started like really dreaming up like all of these giant movies that I wanted to do. And none of them ever got made. But it was because of one of these movies I wrote early on that a guy called me up 10 years later and said, hey, I've become a video game writer now, and we've got a game that's about to ship in 6 months. We don't have a script, and you're the only writer I ever liked working with. And I said, what's the game? And he said Assassin's Creed 2. And this was like a moment where like I hadn't had a video game system. I hadn't had a PlayStation in like 15 years because I was always like, well, I can't, afford the time to play video games and have a writing career. So this was the moment, like I was able to tell my wife I have to go buy a PlayStation for work, which is one of the great moments. But my career, obviously took off in a whole other direction at that point. But I had all of these movies and TV shows from 15 years ago that were still burning, this hole in my, my pocket, so to speak. And they've just been waiting. And so this was like a moment where I finally just said, there's this one story of many that I need to tell now. And I don't want to wait for anybody to have to say yes anymore. I don't want to wait for like, the keepers of the systems to say, okay, here's all the money you need to make this thing giant. When I can just make it, I can find a great collaborator and just put it out into the world. And we really live at a time now with the internet and Kickstarter that you can really like reach out and find your audience, just by putting hopefully good work out there. And so the fact that this story is finally getting to come to life and that George is able to like, really like bring all of his heart and soul into it. I mean, what an amazing like experience this is.
Yeah. Cool. And to talk about the concept of time sensitive a little bit, please fill in the gaps that anything I miss. But the general pitch is you've got this kick-ass LAPD detective. One day he's at a gas station. His wife disappears in the blink of an eye. And then suddenly everybody's like, no, your wife died 5 years ago. What are you talking about? That's right. So he goes on this journey of trying to figure out what happened, prove potentially that everybody's wrong, and at least based on images, it seems like things get wilder and weirder from there.
That's beautifully pitched. I don't know that I could have done it better.
Alex, Hollywood calling.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I was always really drawn in by kind of the Philip K. Dick kind of sci-fi. I love sci-fi that pulls the rug out from under you of what you think reality is. And, and makes you doubt your sanity. It makes you, doubt, and does all the what ifs, the big what ifs about time and life and death and what are we doing here? Those are the questions I've always been fascinated by. And this particular story was like a way into a kind of time travel that I've never seen done before. And so the idea of really like starting with someone whose life changes on a dime and no one else has any memory of them ever having been married. The level of insanity that starts to cause in you is a little exciting as a storyteller. And then the fact that this, kind of dirty street kid shows up, this girl, Tallulah, suddenly shows up out of the blue and says, I believe you. I know what happened to your wife. I know why she was deleted.
Deleted sounds very aggressive.
Yes. Wait, actually, that's a great note to bring up, not to take a little bit of a sidetrack, but I do want to mention every week on the show we have, and this is true, a professional chef down in New Orleans named Brett Macris. He has a restaurant called Shift, which is absolutely amazing. If you're ever in New Orleans, check it out. But he either curates or creates a cocktail for us. And this week he created a cocktail called Take My Wife, Wait, It Was a Joke, based on the book. So it's bourbon, Averno Amaro, lemon juice, maple syrup, orange bitters, and a cinnamon stick for smoking the glass.
Incredible.
Yeah, and it's the sort of drink you could drink and make your wife disappear? Is that what he's saying?
Well, you're on the search to find the Alex. I don't know what you're drinking it for.
I'm definitely a bourbon drinker. That's my drink. I'm so pleased that he went that direction.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's all worked out. George, let's talk about your involvement. When did you become involved in this project and what drew you to it in particular?
Well, I was developing some projects, some pitches, and then Josh contacted me with a new concept, and I was like, well, I would love to do it, but now I'm busy. So I was always curious. And then when Josh contacted me and told me about time sensitive, I found the concept very appealing. And the chance of building a whole new universe from scratch with all those references that it just told about, the whole package was very, very enticing for me.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So there is sort of a more of a universe around this, or at least like you're dropping sort of you're putting a chip down on this type of sci-fi storytelling across multiple books, right?
I think that's really well said. Yes. I mean, Strangeland Comics is the kind of micro boutique publisher that I have formed to put this out. And I think one thing that I've really learned from video games is this idea of world building, this idea that, the player goes on an adventure, but we're not directing that adventure. We are giving, you kind of all of these story magnets to draw you forward, all these curiosity hooks that are going to get you to want to look around, to explore, to find this bigger world. And I kind of realize I've brought this into comics as well. That this is a 6-issue limited series that tells the story of Caleb Stone and his search for his wife. But it really is just the beginning. By the time you get to the end of the 6 issues, if all goes well, it really is just a seed for a much larger world, a much larger kind of terrifying world of what we think is going on throughout the series, and then what we discover is going on by the time we get to the end.
Ooh.
I think
Very
I know
cool.
the answer to this one, but what did you find different about writing comic books versus writing video games?
Well, quite a lot, obviously. I mean, I think, video games, are so much not about character, right? They are about agency. They are about, giving the player the ability to do whatever they want, but also giving them a world they want to explore. Whereas, storytelling in a comic book is so detailed and specific. It is going to be expansive, but it's going to be expansive kind of between the panels in your imagination. The panels have to be so specific. And learning how to write a comic book was an entirely new experience, because I've written, now I was a journalist, a hip hop journalist at the beginning, TV, movies, video games, and now comics. And every single one of them was an entire new lesson, a new language of writing. And every one of them had their new kind of grammar of writing that I had to learn. And so for video games, it kind of, on one hand, went back to the very beginning, where as a novelist, even before a journalist, I had to learn how to describe. And I really had to learn how to describe things in a way that when I went to film, completely I threw that out. Film was no longer about description. Film was about just plotting and action, and the director is the describer. Now, suddenly in comics, I get to use that favorite old tool of description again, except now I have an audience of one. Now it's entirely about kind of taking these images in my head and giving them to Georges and using all of my powers of description to say, this is what I'm imagining, and you bring this to life. And then it's a passing of a torch.
I feel like there's been so many like video game to TV and film project and comics, but I feel like right now everyone's like, video games, finally, it's time to really see those in other media. Why do you think that's happening now? It feels like in a quote unquote for real way. Everyone's being with the Minecraft movie, Last of Us, all of that. Did something change as someone who sees all of this?
I think a couple things have changed. Yeah, I mean, I can definitely talk about, superhero fatigue, right? I mean, we're all
interesting.
Utterly bored of seeing superheroes on screen because they completely took over. And, they were great for a period of time, and then it became overwhelming. Meanwhile, what are the kids growing up with now? They're growing up with video games that they spend not 2 hours with, but hundreds of hours with, right? You go deep into a world, and when you're exploring it and you have agency, you are not just immersed in someone else's experience, you're having the experience. You are deeply engaged with that IP. So when that IP suddenly gets bigger and can translate into other worlds, it's very easy to want to continue to explore that world. Whereas in comic books, kind of at the same time that the superhero fatigue has hit the movies, it's also hit comic books. And comic books is kind of having this renaissance as well, I think, where there is all of these new stories to tell, all of the genres that you can find in comic books now have just creating this much, much richer world. So I think, there's a big hunger for new IP, new genres, and new ways of storytelling.
George, what was important to you in creating the world of Time Sensitive? Was it capturing the characters first, the overall look of it? How did you approach it?
Yeah. First off, it was the characters, and then with some implements that the characters had, like the enforcers have, so those monovisors and the gun. We started to develop some tech, and I can say now that I'm working on layouts for number 2. We're developing a whole new subculture with loads of information and a very curious way to show it, like being on the sewers and stuff. So it's being a blast to expand it from characters, which are the main focus always because of story. So you have to understand the characters and read their emotions, but also expanding now for tech and for the whole new environment. So it's being a blast.
Yeah.
That's the progression: character, tech, sewers.
Yeah.
That's the way I always. That's the
how
way we do it. I mean,
Yep.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Pete. You
Come
know,
on.
that's.
Come on, baby.
I honestly, hearing George say this, we haven't talked in like a couple weeks, so I'm so excited to hear where he's gotten to in the pages this week too. Because
It's always good when we can get you guys to get excited about each other. That's a win. That's a win.
it's amazing. George's work has been mind blowing to me. Like,
Yeah,
really,
it's so
like,
great.
Looks amazing.
his line work,
Appreciate
the level of detail that he does, like it was so important to me. Like I knew when I was looking for an artist, I didn't want Marvel DC. I didn't want something that looked like every other comic. I really wanted to find an artist where you could feel their hand on the page. You could feel the work that went into it. And George does everything by hand. I mean, everything is just the level of
That's
detail
awesome.
of ink on paper is so present.
Well, and I feel like for especially sci-fi storytelling in comic books, you need to toggle that just so, I feel like, especially above superheroes or a lot of other genres, because, you know, it's a fine-tuned premise. So you got to make sure the art really is reflective of that, or you could just be sort of off genre a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And especially in sci-fi like this, you want it to be grounded. You want it
Yeah.
to be grounded in character. You want it to be grounded in the world. It's very much about, you know, Los Angeles as a character, as much as it's about Caleb and Tallulah. It's about this place and seeing this place as it transforms over the course of time.
Cool.
And you're putting this on Kickstarter, like you mentioned earlier. Right now, folks can put in their email to be alerted when it actually goes live. But what can you tease about that? What can you tease about when it eventually is available?
So the Kickstarter is going to launch in a few weeks. Haven't set the date quite yet. But I'm really, really excited. We have these incredible variant covers that you were showing. We have these incredible packages that you can get with all of this incredible swag, all of this incredible, unique artwork by George. You can actually buy pages from the comic.
Cool.
And pieces that George is doing only for the Kickstarter. So I'm
Awesome.
really excited.
How does it feel, just as we're wrapping up here before we let you go, how does it feel going on this 15-year journey to be this close to it actually getting out there to see people?
Yeah, it's powerful, right? I mean, you know, actually the building of a comic book from, you know, a year and a half ago, where I was just like saying, how do I start? How do I find an artist? How do I write a comic book script? Like really like starting from nothing and saying, I want to do this. I have a dream. I want to bring it to life. To then actually the amount of time and effort that it took to connect finally with George, and then to feel like, oh my God, and then to connect so deeply with him, to really find a friend, and then to like begin to bring this thing to life together and to start bouncing ideas off of each other and creating something that was more than I could have imagined it when it was just in my head. Yeah, I mean, you've probably talked to a lot of comic book creators, but this moment, you exactly nailed it. This moment right before launch is terrifying and thrilling.
Wow, it's exciting.
Awesome. That's cool.
That's
Well,
exciting.
guys, congratulations
Yeah.
on the book. Looks awesome. Very excited to
Amazing.
see how well the Kickstarter does. And congratulations on it reaching
Yeah.
the midpoint of this journey, I guess.
Everyone loves the midpoint.
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right,
George,
thank you
for
both.
staying up so late in Portugal with us.
Yes, much appreciated. Thank you both so much. Good luck and have a great night.
Good night.
All right.
Bye, guys.
There we go. Once again, the book is called Time Sensitive. You can go to Kickstarter, check it out there, and sign up for the pre-launch page so you can find out when it launches. It looks awesome. Very excited to check it out. And folks, we have another guest on the show tonight. She's the creator of Stagtown, a hit comic over on Webtoon, among many, many other amazing things. Ladies and gentlemen, Punko.
Hello.
Hey.
Let's do this quick. My mic and camera gave out while I was waiting.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
You see
well,
me scrambling around to like try and unplug it.
I did see your camera keep changing. I was like, what is she? Is this a 3-camera shoot for Punko? Very
See my
exciting.
horrified face?
Yeah, there was a panic, a light panic. It's just what you want.
well, listen, you do have a lot of very excited fans here in the comments. They're very excited to see you. This comic has gotten, I think, I just checked, it was up to 18.8 million views on Webtoon. And I believe it was earlier this year, it was announced that it is being adapted into a movie as well, which is pretty cool. Wow, but I want to talk about the Webtoon. I want to talk about the comic first, because one of the things that I think is so impressive about it, and we talk about this a lot on the podcast with a lot of different comics, but how hard it is to effectively do horror in the comic book medium. Webtoon also is its own medium, separate from like a floppy comic book.
Yeah.
But I think you very effectively do scares, build tension, do jump scares in there, which, like I said, is very difficult to do. So I would just love to hear your take on that. Like, how do you create effective horror in a comic book form?
Well, that's a really good point. It is really a big challenge outside of like things like movies and TV shows. It's hard to do horror, especially in a comic. And it's just not a medium that lends itself well to jump scares and things like that. Although I did get one in. I did manage to get one into the series that people said that was effectively a jump scare for me. And I felt that was the highlight of my life, and it's all downhill from here. And it is, like you said, extremely difficult, and you have to put a lot of time and thought into it. And I spent just too much time. I won't say so much, just too much, like, and excessive, like the incorrect amount of time thinking about it.
Well, and following up on that or digging deeper, like when do you build it? Is it in like scripting, or are you plotting? Are you like doing tiny versions? Where do you put the scares in when you have them?
Well, I always said that it would be impossible for me to just be a writer and work with an artist, because 90% of it just stays up here until it's time to directly draw it. And then the script just says, panel 3, Jeremy does something dumb. And like, that's the whole script. I already know what it is. It just lives in my head rent free. And I would say that basically where I start as a jumping off point is to say, what scares people? And what would scare the average person, and what scares me, and then go from there. And I would say that maybe my advice to be like one of the most effective horror comic advice is, don't do the thing that they do in movies where people make stupid mistakes and that leads to the plot unfolding. I'm sure you're familiar with the works of Junji Ito. I actually wrote like a little personal paper on his technique for scaring people, which is that he will never, and I, to the best of my ability, will never make the characters make a choice that sensible people wouldn't make. And I feel that really heightens the horror for people in the audience, because when you see somebody, you know, like we know, like I love horror movies. You see like the girl going down the hallway and there's like a tinkly, scary like music box music and a creaking open door, and she's like, guys, is that you, Dave? This is fucking horror. Guys, and it's like, what? And everybody in the audience is saying, why are you still there, Dana? It's dead. Leave. Any other sensible person would have left. When you can say to the character on screen, I wouldn't do that, you're no longer afraid, because you think, in that situation, I would have been smart and I would have left. The horror comes from making all the right choices and everything still going wrong. And because then there's no emotional out. There's no way for the reader to think, if I was there, I would have done this. The comments are full of people, full of readers being like, I don't know what I would do. Like they specifically say, I don't know what's going to happen next because I don't know what I would have done differently. Everybody keeps saying, I don't know that I would have done anything differently in this point. So I don't know how to mentally get myself out of this situation. And that makes it a lot more horrifying.
How important, given the Webtoon format, how important is the scroll to building tension?
Well, I'll tell you, like, when I first started with Webtoon, I'd already had like over a decade in the traditional comics industry. And so like I went from like I got my first job with Tokyo Pop in 2005. And so I'm sitting around. Yeah, well, I'm sitting around with all these kids who were like, oh, you know, like our digital scroll. And I was like, oh, when I started out, we drew on paper.
Yeah.
I had a big like 11 by 17 scanner that I would put my pages into. If I missed it in the inks, forget it, we're not fixing it. And so going to the scroll was really difficult, but now I like it so much. I just love it as a format because you can build tension. If you only see, like a lot of times, you know, I'm sure other comic artists have said, like, I wish there was a way to make people read the panel, just one panel at a time. If they turn and see the whole scare on the page, their eyes are going to go right to that. And they're going to miss the whole buildup. And so I love that I can really control them looking one panel at a time. And I think it does heighten it. There was a scene in Stagtown where somebody is in a dark room and then someone very creepily, you just see their feet, but like they open the door where there's light coming in from the hallway, and then their feet walk in and then they close the door. And that helped because I kept the screen and the gutter art and everything all black, and people always read my comic at night.
Yeah, of course.
And a lot of them read it with the lights off. So when they're scrolling through it, the comic and the room around them, it's all dark. And then it lights up brilliant again when somebody opens the door and the light is coming in, and then the whole thing goes dark again and they're left in darkness. And then the thing happens. And that was a big improvement over working in like traditional print comics, I think.
Yeah.
I love
it. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I love that depth of thought, though. Like, it's like the flip of a movie, because you're not thinking about everything on the screen and getting that perfect. You're literally thinking about what each individual person is doing, reading the comic at home, and being like, how can I get them, given what I think and what they've told me they're doing when they're reading this?
It's a lot about psychology, and I've read books on psychology and like the psychology of fear, and I analyzed a lot of things, and I do overthink a lot of things. I test out like, how long does it take to scroll? How much of this scrolling causes tension, and does the scrolling add a pregnant pause into this scene until you get to the scare itself? That's something you just can't do in print.
No.
Well,
that's
on
so
the flip
cool.
side, though, I don't know how involved you are in the day-to-day, but taking it and then translating it into a movie, how potentially is that going to change the story, if at all?
Well, we have Ben Brewer on as director. Great guy. Was like telling me the story about directing Nick Cage. He's like, oh yeah, and then Nick Cage said this, and I was like, that's cool. Like one time I saw a bear eating a donut.
That's an equal great story.
Equal great story. I was like,
yeah.
I got nothing cool to say to this guy. He's such a nice guy, though.
I'd rather see a bear eat a donut.
Wow, Pete.
He's riding a motorcycle. Yeah.
Oh, wow, the story keeps getting... You're building tension.
If it ends with you found $20, this is going to be the greatest story of all.
Somebody write this down. We're going to make this happen. Anyway, so that is, the whole, how do we do this and how do we translate into a movie? And one of the things I said to Ben was just, I feel that this has the potential to really be translated well into a movie, because when I plan out the webtoon and everything, when I stage everything in it, I'm thinking of it as a movie. And I think of specific scenes and like camera angles, and like, I know that series and then my new series, Cinderella Boy, people have said this feels like something that should be a show or a movie, because it has very similar camera angles, similar like story beats, similar kind of pacing and that sort of thing. Although this feels more like a TV show, that feels more like a movie. And I said, that's what I was going for. And it is fun sometimes to do like a scene where there's a big bird's eye view looking down and a big sprawling this and that while people are talking, right? And I said, that's great, but that's not how you'd see it in a movie. Like the camera hardly ever goes flying up to the ceiling whenever people are just talking in an office. Like maybe as an establishing shot, maybe. And so I tried to think of it really as a movie. And I think that one of the things Ben said was that it does have that feel already built into it. So, and I trust that he's going to do an amazing job on it.
And sorry, we should mention, I know pretty much all of our commenters at this point probably know what the concept of Stagtown is, but for anybody listening to the podcast version, the simplest version is that there is a woman who used to live in a small town called Stagtown. She moves back and the town is real weird. There's a lot more to it. But I feel like that's the beginning and that's how you start out. But what I love about Stagtown is it starts with these very episodic, like Twilight Zone-y, Outer Limits situations that are very creepy, but you're layering so much in there that pays off so far down the line and twists and turns together. How much planning was involved versus how much was improvisation as you realized, oh, wait, I could pick up this thing that I laid down 20, 30 episodes ago?
Well, I'm a really big believer in planning. I know I try to operate by the 20 or so rules that Pixar sets out for their movies. And one of their first rules is always plan to the end. Write the end first, and then you can go and see things back. I don't believe in setting yourself up to write yourself into a corner or not know how it's going to end and that sort of thing. So a lot of things were planned very early on. Like as an example, just had the launch of season 2 of my new series, which I started on in 2023, and Stagtown ended, like the series itself ended a couple of years ago, and they just noticed a character who has just now appeared in season 2 of Cinderella Boy, and somebody said, wasn't that a background character in Stagtown like 3 years ago? And I was like, yes. Like,
the best.
And they're like, are there other Easter eggs like that? I'm like, yeah, but you won't see them until like 2026, 27. So
wow.
And they're like
you're like a magician. You're like a magician.
I like, there's just Easter egg upon Easter egg that pays off years from now.
Respect. Wow, that's impressive.
That's good. Long term.
Let me ask you about Cinderella Boy, because we were talking right before you got on. You just put up another episode of it. What is it like? Like, what is the rush from the fan base, the coordination? What, just get wonky about it. Like, you put up a new episode on Webtoon. What happens?
Yeah.
We were saying earlier that we just had season 2 launched last night. And so I said, I'd love to stick around for the rest of all the other interviewers. I gotta go do things. It's really great because honestly, like, as much as everybody likes Stagtown, it's getting a movie, it has all these views and everything, I really love working on the new thing because it's just so happy and chill. It's like being transported to the best of the 80s, which is where I want to be, like all the time. Like, nice. And it's just very silly and fun and comedic. And what I love about doing launch is that the fandom is like, the community is so great. Like, it's just unreal. I talked to Webtoon about it, and they said you should be getting like a little best cleanest fandom award. Like, they're all so nice.
Oh, that's great.
Do you find? I mean, I imagine you have your fans, but do you find there's a different fan base for Stagtown, a hard horror book, versus Cinderella Boy, which is more of a rom-com?
Yeah, when I ended Stagtown, I did a little bridge episode to the new series and said, hey, if you like my stuff, please give it a try. A lot of people said, no, I don't read that sort of thing. No, I only want to see horror from you. And I said, all right, if you do you, my friend. I love Junji Ito. I love Junji Ito, and I have read every single thing he's ever done, but I can't get through that book about cats. Sorry. I read most of it. I just wasn't as involved with it. Sorry. But when people actually came over to the new series, like a reduced amount of them, they found that they really, really liked it. And now there are fans who are on board for this all ages comedy adventure, and they're like, well, I should go check out her other stuff. And then they find Stagtown, and they're like, I feel like I've just wandered into the wrong neighborhood. Yeah. I think I need an adult. And I'm like, so, like, other fans will warn them, like, no, it's fine. Like, yeah, it's scary, but like, it's fine. Just go check it out. And so we've had a lot of unintended crossover between people looking for like a fun comedy, all ages adventure, silly thing with dumb one-liners, and then they go and find Stagtown, and they're like, I like this too.
I have a dark side. Oh,
that's awesome, though. I mean, that's awesome that you could bring people into other storytelling modes, and I think that's one of the joys of a platform like Webtoon. Like, I don't know, that's how we reacted to comic book stores and like the spinner racks back in the day. Were like, ooh, what's this? I'm just going to pick up this.
Yeah,
and I feel like
this looks cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think you really have that in exactly the same way with traditional mainstream comics anymore. Like, you have the comic book shops, but it is very like Marvel's over here, DC's over here, and then everything else is over there. Versus Webtoon, it's a little bit more of a jumble. It's a little more of like, oh, do you like this thing? You like this rom-com? Check out this very dark, disturbing horror book at the same time. Back and forth.
You're absolutely right. I will tell you, when I worked for Action Lab Entertainment, I did a series called Toyetica that was all ages, but a lot of people had it pegged as just towards kids, which you know, it's acceptable for kids. Kids can read it, but it wasn't really aimed at kids. My own local comic book shop who knew me were like, we can't carry it because nobody will buy it. They're only here to buy the Marvel and the DC and all their little figurines and some of the merch, and that's it. And they're like, it's a really, like, we just don't want you to come in here and see it sitting on the shelf for months.
Man.
Which was ridiculous. Like, I mean, no, it wasn't ridiculous. They had a point. They have to make money. They can't have dead stock sitting on the shelf. But it really is, like you said, like on Webtoon, you can be scrolling and be like, well, I'm only here for this one genre. I just like this one genre. And then you see another thing and you're like, oh, well, it's free to click. And you click on it. Yeah. And then suddenly you're like 12 chapters in and you're like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. You talked about the fans moving from like a horror to a rom-com comic. What made you do that? I feel like there's so much when you find something successful, everyone's like, what's your next thing that's like really different, but really right next door to the thing that we already like? So why did you pivot like pretty hard?
Yeah, I know a lot of people are just like, I want something different, but like just the same, but not, but also identical, but also like a little bit less identical.
Yeah, maybe Doe Village or, I don't know, Deer City or something like that.
Well, Deer City is our gritty detective spinoff.
Yeah, exactly.
Deer City is the one that just features the cat from Stagtown. That's the main character now, and she's a detective. I'm in. Actually, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
you're so on board already.
Well, now that you mention it, no, as much as I, am really grateful to the readers of Stagtown and everything, I was suffering. Like physically suffering during that series. I didn't know at the time that I had an undiagnosed autoimmune disease. And a lot of my hair fell out and I lost a quarter of my body weight. Yeah, it's back now. Yeah, it took years, but I was literally like just starving because I didn't know that I had celiac disease. And I was like, ew, like it's that bread allergy? They're like, no, it's not just a bread allergy and you can die from it. And I was like, I didn't know that. Now I am forced to know. Now my main character in the new series has celiac. Not preachy, but he's got it. Mm-hmm. So when I was doing Stagtown, I was utterly miserable because it does also, gluten can act as a mild neurotoxin to your brain and make you really sad and unstable. Wow. And so I was dragging myself through the end of Stagtown, like literally just 11 more, just 10 more, just 9 more. And so I felt, I can laugh about it now, but it was people. Yeah,
that sounds intense.
Yeah, they were like, "I hope they escape Stagtown." I'm like, "I hope I do too." And so they did offer me a season 3, and I said no because I don't want to be the people who have enough material for 2.5 seasons and then decide the rest of it will be filler just for a paycheck. I didn't want the paycheck that
right.
badly.
Yeah.
It was 2 seasons. I had enough for 2 seasons. That's what I wanted to do. And so while I was finishing up season 1 of Stagtown, I got this idea for this really silly comedy series. And it just felt like this breath of fresh air. Just, oh my gosh, I could just be ridiculous, but not have to be horror for like 2 seconds. And because I have done I used to be a performer. I've done stand-up and improv at events and everything, a lot of that. And I just wanted to be funny. and there's only so many times you could be funny in Stagtown. And so I just thought, like, for me and for my mental health and all that jazz, like, I just want to do a comedy. And a lot of people said, oh, well, we're not gonna read it if you don't make it horror. I was like, that's fine, I'll find some new fans. That's fine, I'll find new readers. And I did.
And
That's great.
For anybody, again, who is listening on the podcast who doesn't necessarily know, because I believe, again, most of the commenters are very familiar, what is the pitch for Cinderella Boy, if you don't mind?
It's basically, like, it's all ages, but, like, they have a majority, like, adult audience for it. And, oh gosh, how do I explain it? I used to have a lot, like, one of those, it's something meets something, but I haven't had time to sit down and think of one. Basically, it focuses on the main character, Chase, who is a young lad with very unrealistic dreams of boy band stardom. And he happens upon a key that lets him enter any book. It's actually, the whole series is sort of a parody of isekai tropes that are very popular in Webtoon. So he has a key that lets him, if you stick it into a book, he can become a character in the book. Unfortunately for him, he has the heroine key. So he's always the heroine in every book. Oh. And so if he can do this enough times and, like, do enough stories, he will earn a substance called serotonin. And if he can get enough of it, he can make a wish for anything that he wants. And so he's determined to do this and doesn't mind that he has to be the heroine as long as he gets to boy band his way across the stage in several storybooks. And he gains a cast of characters who also gain keys that are wildly unsuited to themselves and must go into books and learn. It's an isekai parody, but with a heart. It's not just making fun of things. It's talking about what are character tropes in stories. What do we mean when we say the hero, and what do we expect of them, and what do we give them in return? Like, how does the audience interact with certain kinds of characters? There's one character named Deacon who gets basically the helper key, which is like the sidekick key, and they're all the keys are based on sort of like the I won't say like Campbell's hero, or like, but more like Jungian archetypes and things like that. And he gets his, and all he wants is to be the hero, because he lives a life where, like, his parents are very overbearing, and he just wants to be the hero, and to the point where he ditches an important point to go and live out his Lord of the Rings parody storybook as much as he wants. And one other character has to set him straight, saying, he's like, I just want to be the hero in my own life. And he's like, there are times in our lives when we must be the hero and times when we must be the helper, and you can't accept being both, then you don't deserve to be either. And so he has to come to terms with not being second banana, but how does he feel self-actualized? How does he assert himself in his life, but not to the point where he treats himself as a main character while everybody else is just useless NPCs? And how does he stop thinking of himself as the sidekick in his own life and assert what he wants in life? And other characters have other tasks that they have to learn. Everybody learns something at the end of the day, but I would say that it's kind of like, I would never be so bold as to say that it's as funny as Gravity Falls, but I took a lot of the pacing and timing from that, and it gets compared to that a lot, but it will never be that good.
I do want to.
No,
Gravity Falls is the best.
It's literally
we all
so
agree.
good.
I was telling my personal trainer to watch it.
Wow.
I was literally in the middle of RDLs, and I'm like, James, you ever watch Gravity Falls?
We're getting a lot of comments here, but I did want to call out one in particular. This is from Butterfly. Me and my friends always read the fanfics, and I'm always Deacon, so let me scream real quick. What is it? I assume this is what Butterfly is talking about. What is it like to have fanfic about your work?
It's funny. Somebody said something. I think there was a short comic in Stagtown where people asked like, what do I do all day? And then I had like a little short comic where I was in the crimes bunker or something. It was like doing ridiculous things. And one of them was like making fun of people who like write fanfics about like actual celebrities or something. And somebody posted like, that is a real big problem. Like, how'd you like it if somebody wrote a fanfic actually about you, like you personally? And I said, they did. It's on AO3.
Yeah.
It actually it involves a car accident I was in like years ago.
Jeez.
No, like in a comedic way. I was
in a fun way.
Oh, like a fun car accident.
because I was dressed as Cinderella at the time when I was hit in the car accident, because I used to be a princess entertainer for like events. And so I'd like go out and be like Cinderella and Snow White, and then I was dressed as Cinderella and got hit by a car.
Oh my god.
It was, so it is great. I have a deal with the fans. If they put Punko can read this in the tags on the story, then I will read it. Otherwise, I will try not to read it, because you don't want the creator looking over your shoulder when you're writing.
Oh, that's such a courteous thing to put out there.
I mean, that was something that I was going to ask you about as well, and not to open like a can of worms here, but given that Webtoon is such a responsive platform where people are just chatting about the stuff all the time, and versus, again, monthly comics, which are like, not only are they coming out monthly, but you're creating them months in advance, this is much more constant. How much do you take the feedback from the fans to, pace out or change things the way the stories are going? Or are you just kind of on your path, listening to them and kind of going from there?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, and it bears noting that there is a very fine line between taking feedback from your readers and letting them run the story. And
yeah.
I know that I learned a lesson in Stagtown when I had introduced what was supposed to be a very minor plot line about a male character who was crushing on another male character. And it was not supposed to, this is a horror movie, horror movie. It is now.
It is now. It is now.
I think of it as a movie. We're not going to be developing love triangles and talking about he said, she said, and like people reading other people's texts or whatever. Like, it was just supposed to be a minor thing, because the series is all about what are different kinds of trauma responses to things. You see the characters sleeping to avoid responsibility for the things that they're going through, or having insomnia, or being too overprotective and stifling others, and like just different responses. And there was one where I wanted to show a character not even knowing if he has feelings for somebody or not, because they're in such a stressful situation that he's sort of kind of trauma bonded with him. Like, he's just like, when you're like, you got a lot of adrenaline and you're like, does it belong to me liking this person, or is it literally because we're like dying and like thrown together in this tight situation? I don't know. And I wanted to put just one more little chapter about it, but there was such a weird influx of like homophobic people in the comments who were like, oh, gross, I'm not reading it anymore. And I was so sick at the time and exhausted, and I didn't have any buffer. This is before I had an assistant or anything else. I was doing the whole comic by myself and working 70 plus hours a week, drawing it all by hand the hardest way possible. I've learned better ways, but I was so tired, and I just thought, oh no, everybody hates it, when really it was only maybe a couple dozen comments, and I just dropped it, and I didn't finalize that resolution. And I'm really glad that I'm going to get to Penguin Random House is doing the print versions of the books now, and I'm glad that I'm going to get to add that content back in. In the end,
that's great.
Oh, that's great.
That's great.
It was great. It like I'm glad you think so. It was a shame that I just let people get to me. You can let the comments get to you. And this is a very common complaint among Webtoon creators is, how do I block out some of that? And how do I just stick to my story? And I said, never again am I going to let people change what I'm doing just because I think of that. And so I have everything all planned out. This is my story. It's not going to change. I wrote it and obsessed with it. The new series, we worked over a year on the scripts before even starting it, just ironing every last detail out. But I will say, there was one scene in Cinderella Boy where a guard is harassing the male character who has a key, so he's technically a female character, but it's supposed to be comedic. But a lot of fans, actually, I shouldn't even say a lot. I should say maybe 3 people were like, they're like, oh, it's making me like, it is kind of uncomfortable. Like, it's, I think this guard is going a little too far in his pursuit. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. And so I went back and I simply changed the dialogue to make it more tame and calm down for them. And so people said, I appreciate that you did that for us. I'm not going to change everything because you don't like this or you don't like that. I'm not going to do that. But in a case where I see, maybe up to half a dozen people saying, oh, this was really uncomfortable. This is an all ages series. It really was pretty tame, but they were, I don't want to give any spoilers, but they were a little, they were just like, it is kind of, and I was like, Well, I grew up in the 80s and 90s on cartoons when you could do literally everything.
Yeah.
Like, I had to admit, I was like, I mean, I grew up on Ren and Stimpy. Maybe they've got a point.
We do have a couple people in the comments here. Allison Espinoza says, wait, it's getting a physical version? So Stagtown is being collected by Penguin Random House, you said?
Yes, so far it's 2 books, but we're trying to fit them all in 2 books because like
Wow.
1 book per season. But they're very big and like one of those, big omnibus kind of comics. So Allison, I can't really tell you a timeline. I know it's not coming out like in the next couple of months or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would like it to be maybe end of this year. But you'd really have to wait and see what they finally estimate because it takes a long time to put these together. And putting a webtoon into book format is really hard.
Yeah,
honestly, everyone we have from Webtoon on the show talks about like the conversion is not only time consuming but also mentally. I feel like some people are like, yeah, it was really hard. Like you can still feel the pain that they're going through. So I'm sure it's difficult.
My camera stand is sitting on a giant FedEx box right here where they sent me like printout paper proofs along with like a PDF. And I'm just looking through it and they're like, okay, look, like we need to cut this many pages from this book in order for it to not be a phone book. And I was like, okay, well, and they're like, what panels can we cut? What can we keep? And I was like, I don't want to cut any art, but maybe there's a lot of space here with text over it that we can... Oh, and they're like trying to jigsaw panels to fit on the page. I'm sure other webtoonists have told you about that. It's just, it feels like a nightmare, but it will get done. Yeah. And it'll look good.
Well, I have to imagine the fact that you started in print books, then went to Webtoon, and are now translating it into a print book. That probably helps a little bit because this is not necessarily a fresh format for you. I feel like
it helps even less because I feel like I'm going against everything I ever learned.
All right.
I can feel my professor Mark like from SCAD in my head, like 5 to 7 panels a page. That's the sweet spot right there. And I'm like, but Mark.
Yeah. You don't understand. It's a vertical format, Mark. You don't understand.
You don't understand. I can't do splash pages. It's a vertical format. Exactly.
Yeah. I did dark backgrounds because I'm anticipating the reader seeing the light when it comes through because they read it in the dark. You don't understand, Mark.
Exactly. No, I already went through that once with Tokyo Pop. I did an 8-volume graphic novel series called Biz and Gas that had all black gutters, and they're like, well, we can always tell which book is yours on the shelf, even if you flipped around all the gutter art is black. I was like, I'm just going through a really goth phase, okay? So like, my parents don't understand me.
Well, this stuff is all awesome. Like we said, Cinderella Boy is ongoing. 2nd season just started. But before we wrap up here, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to plug?
No, that's about it. This is a stuffed animal.
Pineapple.
Oh, it's the like-napple. You know how you see on webcomics at the end, there's always like, a little drawing of the author and they're like, hey, please like and subscribe. It really helps me. And you feel bad, but you always scroll past all of that. Like you always scroll past it because it just says, hey, please like and subscribe. And nobody ever remembers to. And I want to tell you that on Webtoon, one of my former editors was just like, you get a phenomenal amount of likes for such a smaller series. And I was like, that's because at the end, Like-Napple shows up. And it's just a pineapple in a pageant sash that says Like-Napple. And he apparently commits crimes that nobody knows about. And so he's always telling the audience about all the crimes. He's like, and the police officer said, is that your car on fire in the street? And he's like, no, just because I stole it doesn't make it mine. And
wow.
And it's like and subscribe for burning cars, right? That sort of thing. And he introduces a watermelon named Big Tony. That's just a watermelon with a knife in it. And he's like, Tony said we didn't get enough likes last time. He wants to know what size boot my face wears. Please help me. This man's not my friend. And we have
spin-off series series.
Big Tony's now my favorite character. Oh my God.
People actually have drawn fan art of Big Tony and Like-Napple. and like Apple's kids that he sent to the gummy bear factory to become pineapple gummies.
Oh no!
Wow.
And
The comments are lit right now. As soon as Like Apple hit the
everybody
screen.
likes like Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, they. It's just one of the things. I'm just like, listen, if I'm going to ask you to subscribe or give it a like, I'm at least going to be entertaining when I do it. Okay.
That's very nice of you.
This is great advice.
I think
People
we could
love the
learn
extra.
something here, boys. That's all I'm saying.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
We need Big Tony.
Punko, thank you so much for coming on. Absolute pleasure. Congrats on
congratulations.
everything. Good luck
Yeah.
on the Stagtown movie. I can't wait to see it. And
Very
good luck with
exciting.
the rest of Cinderella Boy.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. It was a blast.
A pleasure.
pleasure.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon.
Bye.
All right, there we go. Just to plug that stuff again, you can check out all of Stagland right now on Webtoon. Cinderella Boy
Stagtown.
just kicked off the second season. Stagtown movie coming later. Stagtown collection coming later as well, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But check that all out. Don't forget to like an apple. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Like Napple. Yep.
Like an apple. Okay.
Yeah.
I added an E. I'm sorry. And folks,
We at the end of our podcast, just our dumb faces saying, that's horrible
thanks.
marketing.
Yeah.
we are going to move on with our next section, which is my favorite section because you all make it up. It is your audience questions. And for audience questions, all you got to do is drop a question in the comments on YouTube, Twitch, and I will take a look over on Instagram. It can be about absolutely anything you want. Comics, movies, TV, romance, whatever you like. But what are you guys drinking tonight while we're waiting for those questions to come in?
I'm fresh out the North Country, so you know I'm drinking that Labatt Blue, straight out of Canada, my guys.
Nice.
Tariffs not getting my Labatt Blue down.
Oh boy. Let's hope not. Yeah, I'm drinking. It's a Fathead Brewery Sunshine Daydream IPA.
What
Ooh,
the
that
hell?
doesn't have like a fun thing you can say about it consistently, Pete. How many did you get?
This
36?
Pete, this isn't you.
I just got a little bit of a mixed bag of beers. So
Oh, weird. That's weird.
Nice.
You gotta get
paid
one
like
that-
a 21-year-old to go buy you some beer, and they got you random shit.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like
Wait
this
outside
fell
the
off
Quickie
the back
Mart.
of the
You're
truck.
like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't mind.
Hey, buy me beer, man.
All right, we got a couple of questions piling up here. This is from Twitch. Eric MCI 900 says, "What would the comic book club mascot be?"
I guess a Punisher slipper would be. It's pretty nice.
Oh, really? I was thinking
dark.
maybe a beer with a knife in it or something. You know what I mean?
Oh, you love that. You love Big Tony. Is
You
that
love
right?
Big Tony the melon.
Big Tony's my favorite.
Nice. Speaking of which, the Big says, "Hi guys, Father's Day is coming up. What trade paperbacks would you suggest for comic-loving dads?"
Wouldn't our mascot be Boothman Prime?
Oh,
That's
sure.
nice.
Going back a question? Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, not to get back
Alex
to
is
our
mad.
24/7 live stream, but I also managed to get some copies, don't ask me how, of our old show that we did with Nerdist. Some of those. So I was watching like James as Boothman in the show,
yeah.
which I had like completely forgotten the whole format of that thing. I watched a little bit of the what was it? It was the Steve Wacker Bill Hader show.
I have that show. If you need that, I guess you don't. You have.
No,
that.
no, I do have that one. So that's running in the 24/7 live stream. Also, the John Glazer. Oh my God, I'm forgetting who else was on. Oh, John Glazer and Charles Soule.
Charles Soule.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. The ones that I wasn't able to get yet, but I'm working on it. The Kevin Conroy, John H. Benjamin show.
Oh.
And oh my God, there's another one I couldn't grab. But anyway, there you go. That doesn't answer the question the Big asked. What trade paperbacks would you suggest for comic-loving dads? I mean, not knowing what you've
kind of
read.
dad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the basics are like, I don't know. First thing I thought about is like Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, interesting. Strong choice. Obvious.
Yeah, I
first
guess.
right.
I don't know.
Justin, you write
mean-
down your answers before you say them? What's up?
No, I'll say them. I mean, dads don't always need to read dad content, so it doesn't have to be dad based. It can be
Right.
anything. I mean, digging in a little bit, like I would throw out Bone, an answer I haven't said in a long time, but something I love.
I'll throw out an answer for Pete. Too Cool to Be Forgotten by Alex Robinson.
Oh,
which
that's
is
about fathers.
It's about fathers and sons. So there you go.
Yeah, yeah. It gets me in the feels every time I read it.
That's a good one. I'm trying to think of something
It depends on what kind of dad he is. You know what I mean? He could be like 100 bullets, type of dad, or maybe it's a Fables type of dad.
What comic would you get your dad's?
Ooh, good.
How's that for a twist?
I would have to force my dad to read a comic. I don't know if he would just read.
The reason I started reading comics was because my dad brought them, and he had a collection from when he was younger, but they were mostly like Classics Illustrated and stuff like that. So maybe if I could find
Prince Valiant?
Prince Valiant. You know what? I don't know if he has it anymore, but Little Nemo and Slumberland, I'd grab him a collection of that because we used to have one on the shelf, and I don't know if it exists anymore, but that was great. So.
Michael Tillman says Sea of Stars, Dad-Son book. Great call.
Very good.
Yeah.
Great. This is Schreckler says, I had to. Who are your other favorite fruit-based characters?
Fruit-based characters.
Krakoa grows fruit out of him, so that's cool. He's like a living package of runts.
Flaming carrot? Are carrots fruits?
Definitely not.
Uh-oh.
You've heard of food before, right?
Not really. My doctor keeps trying to tell me about this, and I'm just not getting it.
Carrots are fruit, right? I don't know. Condiments are underneath Ronald Reagan as president. That was a fruit, so that works.
Jelly beans were also fruit in that case. Nat Townsend said, why don't they print webtoons on a long scroll of paper that can be read vertically like a town crier in 1305?
Oh, nice.
That is very fun. Probably it would look more like toilet paper. That's probably why not.
Because you think it looks like toilet paper? That's why they wouldn't do it?
No, but it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be a wide scroll like a town crier.
Yeah. Alex sees a long piece of paper. He's running right to the bathroom with it. He's a maniac.
It's all those carrots, man.
Gotta eat. They're running right through you. You don't know what they are. Yeah. Why are you eating them?
All my health servings of fruit are carrots. Anyway, Michael Tillman says, will we be able to watch the episode later, and where do I go to watch it?
Huh?
YouTube?
Greg, I think he's maybe asking this question for the massive influx of folks we had for Punko. But yes, this is on our YouTube all the time, or you can subscribe to our podcast and check it out. Please like and subscribe.
That would be utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
It's an otter tape dispenser.
Oh, of course that's what that is, because that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Otters love tape.
Joey Groa says, with Peter David passing this week, I revisited his collection of But I Digress columns from Comic Buyer's Guide.
Wow.
Any past print publications help shape your comics genre loves. # like an apple.
Man, great call. To go back to that, that must be
Joey.
Any past print publications help shape your comics genre loves. I mean, I definitely read the shit out of Wizard when it was coming out.
The Wizard was great.
And what I liked, the thing I miss about Wizard, Comic Book Shop News, yes. Yeah. The thing I miss about Wizard is they would do all these tangential articles that I feel like you don't get as much these days, where it would be like, here's a deep dive on what it would be like if the X-Men's powers were real, or whatever. And like, here's a scientific exploration of how mitochondria could explain why Cyclops has optic blasts. And stuff like that, that opened my brain up back in the day.
Yeah, I would say Nintendo Power was mine.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a great one. For me, it was Variety. Cheerful Calico Cat says, I'm new. What is your channel content usually about? Well, first of all, this. Second of all,
hi.
Hello, welcome. We do weekly interviews with comic book writers and artists, both from Webtoon and from traditional comics, graphic novels, run the whole spectrum. We talk to them, and then we also review comics once a week on our Stag podcast, and then we also talk about comic book TV shows and movies as well.
That's right.
Does that cover it, guys?
And really we do drafts where I get lit up for not remembering to include my favorite character.
Yes, but there you go, and welcome. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all of the Punko fans who came out tonight. That was very fun to see everybody so stoked in the comments.
If you're specifically a Webtoon person, like we have a lot of Webtoon people on here, especially in the last 6 months. If you want to go check those out, we've had some great interviews, I feel like.
Yeah. Stray Bullet says, Alex mentioned that Peter David got mad when he did the thing where he likes the first half of the book but doesn't like the second, and he yelled at you guys, any other big creators you've upset.
Oh,
okay. So, all right, let me just clarify about this because I dropped this in our Discord. And by the way, if you want to join our Discord, patreon.com/comicbookclub, where you can also get ad-free versions of this podcast and all of the rest of them.
And get to argue with Alex directly and make him say stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's the thing about Peter David is he, and I say this complimentarily, this is not slagging it all off at all. He was a crank. Like that was kind of a large part
famously.
Of he was famously a curmudgeon. And right after he passed away, other than being very upset about it, because he was, I don't want to speak for you guys, but certainly for me, like very formative for my comic book reading.
Yes.
Particularly his Incredible Hulk run, along with alongside
Same.
Chris Claremont on X-Men, like those were, and Walt Simonson on Thor, like that's sort of the triumvirate of like, that's why I like comics for so long.
Yeah.
So I was, even though he was sick for a very long time, and we knew he was probably going to go at some point, it was a real, very upsetting this weekend.
Agree. And like, even though he was older, he was still not as, he's still young. To
he was
pass
68
away.
years old, so it sucks.
And it really sucks. And he still feels very young and present to me. He was up until very recently still making comics, and like his Incredible Hulk run was like talking about like mind expanding. Chris Claremont's a great example, and something I feel like I've been thinking about a lot in relation to reading this stack this week. I feel like Peter's death has made me think a lot about comics. Like I feel like we just don't get that same type of run anymore, where he's like super wide but also very detailed and like somewhat strange while still being paying homage to the character directly. Like it's really, really sad loss. But anyway, back to other people we've made angry.
Well, actually, wait, I just want to clarify the thing about Peter David. Because
I can go down the list real quick of people I've upset.
Hold on, before you do, I just want to clarify the thing about Peter David. So after, along with being bummed, like my first memory was not even the shows that we had him on or the multiple times we interviewed him at various Comic-Cons or anything like that. The two times I thought about is when he like straight up cranked out at us because it just felt like so intrinsically Peter David. One of them was when we were doing Pulp Secret and reviewed a Quicksilver one-shot that he had done. And this is to go against what Stray Bullet is saying. I think it was actually you, Justin, who were like,
yes,
I didn't really like the second half of the book, but the first half was really strong in the review. And he got very mad at us about it.
Yeah.
And
I was like, there's half a compliment in there, my guy.
Yeah, exactly. And we weren't upset about it or anything. We were just like, oh, you felt very passionately about this thing.
Because wasn't he in the comments?
Yes.
On the video? Yeah. He got into our literal comments on that.
And then the other time was, I honestly don't remember the Comic-Con. I think I was working for MTV at the time, and I had contacted in advance about doing an interview, and I went up to him like between panels, and I was like, hey, do you still have time to do an interview? And he was like, no. I was like, okay.
He's like, you were standing next to that guy who didn't like the back half of my book on a TiVo show I saw a while ago. I was like, what?
Yeah. So yes, both of those things, I don't say those again to be dismissive at all. Those are actually like treasured memories of like, yep, famous curmudgeon Peter David cranked at us, and that's great.
Yeah.
But Pete, who else did you upset?
Let's see. I at a New York Comic Con, I yelled at the Spawn panel about something they recently did in the Spawn. There was, oh my God. Justin, what's one of your favorite? We got into it with one of your favorite writers. Oh my God! And
he was anybody.
He was a real sport about it, though. Like you know what I mean? The Fear Agent writer. I'm totally blanking.
Remender?
Yeah, Remender.
Oh,
remember
you yelled at Remender about Frankencastle, right?
Yeah,
always. You yelled at him every time. He liked it. Talk about a guy who likes being yelled at. He's there for it.
Yeah, he was very cool about it. But yeah, those are the ones that kind of stick out to me because, yeah, I mean, like Peter David, I'm also passionate, and so it's understandable.
Yeah. I mean, one person you made really happy, Pete, is Kyle Baker.
Yeah, Yeah, me and Kyle Baker are friends.
Very close.
Yeah.
Follow up with that if you want that full story in the Discord. I can't think of people we've specifically angered. I mean, we always
I'll tell you
got
what,
after
I can,
Jeff
and
Loeb.
I'm not going to say it.
Really? I can't. I truly can't think of anybody. So I'll
because
talk to you.
versus the Peter David thing, where like it was a fun crank.
All in good fun.
I think
Yeah.
all in good fun. I think, or at least that's the way I took it.
Well, it was just him being like, "Hey, here's what you get for shitting on Quicksilver, my guy."
Yep. Yeah, there were a couple of them that I was like, "Ugh, you should not be writing or saying that. Just calm down there." So I will take that to my grave, maybe.
Great.
Well, fun.
Okay. To our shared grave.
Yes, our shared grave, our triple decker grave.
That's right.
Yes. Frederico Rosa says, did you guys watch the rehearsal? A lot of shows finales this week. Yes, indeed, I did. And it was stunning. Have you seen it yet, Justin?
I didn't watch the finale yet, and I'm trying so hard to not read anything about it.
Don't.
Because the hype on that is stunning. So can't wait.
It's great. Fantastic show. If anybody hasn't checked it out, go watch the rehearsal on Max. Read literally nothing about it because it is just a wild roller coaster of a show.
I've loved every episode.
And we got a good one to wrap up on here. Eric MCI 900 says, of all the platform-related project jobs, what is the one you wish maybe took off more? Oh, maybe the beginning of that was nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is nice. I certainly have an answer. The crazy thing about, I have this dovetails nicely with a story that just happened to me the other day. The Stack, when we were doing the Stack for Next New Networks, we didn't realize how big our viewership was. And when they pulled the plug, we had just popped off so hard because we were on TiVo. And there were a ton of people watching us on TiVo that weren't counted in our numbers or whatever. And I just don't think it was before everyone was good at just encapsulating all of the multi-platform viewership. And I feel like if that had held on a little bit longer, we would be doing that still. But so I was at my daughter's my kid's elementary school, and this dad came up to me and was like, "Oh, you're a podcast dad, right? You do like a podcast?" And I was like, "Well, I don't go by that. I don't go by that." But,
Podcast dad.
yes,
That's hilarious.
And he's like, "What's it about? Comic books, blah blah blah." And I was talking about it. And he's like, "Yeah, that's cool. I used to watch one a while ago called The Stack." And I was like, "Is this a bit? That's my podcast?" He's like, "No." I was like, "Yes."
No, that's hilarious.
And then the dude texted me a picture of him on a panel with you, Alex, that he did at some point. His name's Dwayne. I have a picture of it. I'll tell you what.
Dwayne.
You look like a baby. But yes, it was. I was like, that's the best celebrity unrecognition I've had. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Classic New York story where they wanted to fight with you about no, you're not on the podcast I used to listen to. That's hilarious.
Also, on the topic of looking like babies, so the stuff that I put up on this 24/7 live stream is all. The large majority of it is stuff that we started at the pandemic because that's when we actually started regularly posting the shows, and people started commenting like, "Wow, you guys look so young," and I was like, "Oh no, that was 4 years ago."
Yeah, I mean, that is true.
The pandemic aged people. You know what I mean? It got weird.
Here's the Spill.com presents Now What? So Now What? On April 20th, 2013, it's a panel of established nerds discussing geek culture's mainstream takeover. And let me just get you right there.
Oh, look at that face.
Oh, my God. What is that?
You look like you were in college.
And
see those sideburns?
Grace is right next to you.
Oh, yep. Yeah, should I put that up in our stream? Best of with Grace Randolph?
Yeah, I think
there's no problem with that.
Anyway, do you miss those sideburns?
My sideburns? I mean, they're all part of the beard, baby.
Yeah, but it used to have those sweet sideburns. You know what I mean?
Did. That was definitely brand. The brand was strong.
Mm-hmm.
The brand was sideburns. Justin wishes his drinking TV show was still going. You're goddamn right I do, Stanley.
I love that show, man.
Until my doctor says you can't do that anymore. We'll see someday.
All right, and that is it for your audience questions. We're now going to move to our next section, which is trivia, and for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right, this is the part we give back to you, the lovely audience. It's an opportunity to win $25 free to Midtown Comics online, because if you had $25, you'd probably want to go to a comic book shop and read you something good. Ooh. All right, well, all we need is a brave volunteer. And
the Zen Man was on it.
Oh, yeah, Zen Man?
Zen Man coming out of
we had a bunch of people, but Zen Man got it in first.
Zen Man first. Okay, here we go.
I'm telling you, Twitch is faster. Twitch is the fastest one.
Yeah, it's up to Twitch. Way to be out there. All right, today's trivia is about the absolute universe and a small nod to the legend George Wendt, R.I.P. Norm. All right, please listen to all three options before making your selection. Here we go. Question number 1. Who is overseeing the absolute universe? Is it A, Scott Snyder, B, what does the S stand for? Send. C, Jim S. Cash.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Send cash.
Send cash.
Zen
Zen Man says A.
A is correct. Here we go.
Amazing.
Question number 2. Which comic became the best-selling comic of 2024? Was it A, Absolute Batman, B, Your Name Makes Me Hungry, LLC James Ritz?
This guy loves crackers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man.
Did you eat anything good over the weekend?
Oh, yeah, dude. I had some chicken fajitas, which was great. Little shrimps on the queue, you know what I mean? It was delicious.
Was that
How about
for
yourselves?
Memorial Day? You did a Memorial Day barbecue?
For fajitas?
Yeah.
Fajitas?
Or were you at Applebee's? The home.
I was just at, I was just
Stray
at
Bullet
Applebee's.
says there was no C. It was James Ritz or something like that.
C
he said it
was-
very quickly.
Yeah.
Zen Man says, I need to add more, and now I can say A.
All right. Great.
Nice.
You did it. A is correct. Here we go. Last one. Question number 3. What 2 absolute titles have been nominated for an Eisner? Is it A, Batman and Wonder Woman, B, Hey Billy, Eat My Shorts, C, William S. Bartman?
I'm curious what George Wendt, not really known as a film actor, where you, pardon the pun, but where you went to find his grades.
Oh, man. This is one of my favorite studies in.
Zen Man says, Twitch needs me to make the message different from the last one. A.
A is
Twitch,
correct.
even Twitch is like, surely it can't be A again.
Yeah.
Sir, you
Appreciate
can't.
the work that you're putting in, Zen Man. It's not going unnoticed. We appreciate it. But you are correct.
You are correct, and you have won Trivia Zen Man. You're going to get a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Shoot us an email, and we will get that off to you. Pete, what is the George Wendt movie you're referring to?
Of course, I'm talking about the 1986 heartfelt comedy Gung Ho.
And we do have a late-breaking question here. This is referencing your shirt, Justin. What is the Tiny Pony Tavern, and can I steal the name?
It is a bar just outside of Joshua Tree in California. Cool dive bar with good food. Had a fun lunch there with my kids and was like, should we be here? It's not a strip club. Well, he found out when we went inside. Yes.
That's how you pick places with your family? You're like, well, it's not a strip club.
It just it had strip club vibes from the outside, and we went in, and it was like fantastic. It was great. The food was great. Definitely a great spot to go to if you're up in the Palm Springs, Joshua Tree area. We're heading to Pioneer Town, if you've ever
lot of tiny ponies in there, or what were you seeing?
Yeah, it was like a pony. There's a lot of ponies running loose in the bar.
Wow.
Nice. You know what's running loose in the comic book shops tomorrow is new comic books. What are you guys looking forward to at the Pink Comic Club, if that's what we're talking about? Pete, what are you checking out? What are you excited about tomorrow?
Oh, man, I'm very excited about Absolute Martian Manhunter #3.
That series has been great.
Yeah, a wholly artistic achievement. I mean, that thing is fucking unbelievable. Worth it for the art alone.
Holy artistic achievement.
We are taking everyone down with us #3. Also, I'm looking forward to that as well. Very excited for those.
Justin, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Great question, Alex. I've been looking forward to Daredevil Cold Day in Hell #2, Charles Soule's dark look at the future of Daredevil. In the first issue, he doesn't have powers and is in a bad mood, but things change pretty quickly. I'm looking forward to Magic #5. We just recently did a podcast where we talked about the state of X, what's happening in the X-Men corner of the Marvel Universe, and Magic is and remains one of my favorite series to be going on, so ongoing series. So excited to get the next chapter and that. And how about the Power Fantasy #9? That book is like the biggest, most fill you up meal you can get on the comic book rack right now, and definitely check it out.
A bunch of stuff I'm looking forward to. I will give a shout out to the Kill Trade #5 from Mad Cave
Great
Studios.
call, yes.
Really
I love
been enjoying
the Kill
that
Trade.
wild series about a bunch of people who go on the subway and get murdered. That's just a regular thing that happens. Really good satire going on in that book. Also, Star Trek Lore War, Shax's Worst
you love the
Day.
Lore War.
Loving the Lore War over at IDW, but also this is a semi-sequel to Shax's Best Day, which was nominated for an Eisner. Ooh. So excited to see what they do with his Worst Day. And there was at least one other one that I wanted to shout out. The Goddamn Tragedy #1 from OD Press. This is Chris Condon on a Western. Doesn't miss with Westerns, so probably won't miss here either.
Yes, cool. Very excited for that as a huge fan of that Texas Blood.
Yep, there you go. And all of those titles and many more are going to be in our Stack podcast that comes Wednesday, 9 a.m., both in the Stack feed and the Comic Book Club feed. And folks, that is it for this week's show.
That's it for this week's show.
A couple of people we want to thank. We want to thank Punko for coming on, talking about Webtoon Stagtown and Cinderella Boy. Check those both out online now. Also, Joshua Rubin and George Coelho for talking about Time Sensitive. You can head to Kickstarter to join the pre-launch page. Sign up there to find out when it launches. Next week on the show, Chris Condon is going to be here.
Holy shit! What?
That's crazy. With Jeffrey Allen Love, talk about a different comic book, Image Comics news from the Fallout. I'm sure we'll get into some stuff about the Goddamn Tragedy as well. We'll see. Also, Marguerite Bennett and Bev Johnson are going to be here. Talk about Mad Cave Studios' Flash Gordon, The Girl from Infinity, Volume 1.
Oh,
so
man.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Great creators.
Big pack show next week. Comic Book Club News, our daily news podcast, Monday through Friday. You can check that out. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and all the shows we do. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, don't forget to otter and subscribe.
Yeah.
You otter subscribe.
Otherwise, Big Tony will get you.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm here for Punko.
Nat giving it up for the otter subscribe. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. Good night, all.
Later.
Peace out.